Hey, what's up, people? I hope you are doing fine. I know it's Monday, time to go back to work. No more time to lay down in the sofa like a sir doing nonsense. But I also hope that you had an awesome weekend with your family and friends. My name is Pepe Cuenca. I am a Spanish Grandmaster, and I'm bringing you another masterpiece, another brilliant game that actually was suggested by one of the users during the last video. So there was one user, he suggested that we should analyze the game Nigel Short versus Sergei Grigorians because he said it was a really brilliant and interesting game, and I have to agree completely, because when I was taking a look I saw there were so many tactical shots, so many sacrifices that I felt forced to share it with you. And yes, as I'm telling you, Nigel plays with the white pieces. Nigel was the first Englishman playing in a World Championship final versus against Kasparov. Previously, he defeated Karpov and Jan Timman, so Nigel is one of the chess legends, and he's still playing in the top 60, top 70 in the world. So really strong player, and his opponent was Sergei Grigorians, a really strong Armenian grandmaster. So I'm gonna cut the bullshit and we're gonna start focusing on the game in the 64 squares. So let's start with it. So knight f3 was played by Nigel Short, knight f6 by Sergei Grigorians, c4, c5. Clearly Sergei shows his intentions to enter in the Slav defense, one of the most solid approaches by black to face d4. Nigel played knight c3. After d5, now if white plays d4, we are in the main line of the Slav. Black can play many things here. For example, e6, we will be entering the semi-Slav variants. But for example, after d takes c4, there are many, there is a lot of theory here. And for example, a4, it's a well-known line where white tries to stop black playing b5 after bishop f5. Sorry. White can play e3, knight e5, intending to recapture this Carlitos pawn straight away. But this is another story. Nigel decided to go for e3 here in this position. Just a really normal move, defending the c4 pawn, aiming to develop this bishop later by a e2 or by a d3 in order to castle. So black played e6. So we are in this semi-Slav approaches, where white now played d4, controlling the center. It's really important, as you know. So knight b7, one of the it's the most natural square for this knight in these lines, and queen c2. This queen is really well placed in this c2 square, so it frees the d1 square later for this rook, and also prepares the development of this bishop by a d3, where you can try to create some pain on h7 later. So just for those who are starting to play chess, normally in these types of structures with black, you will love to take on c4 and then to expand your pawns on the queen side by playing b5 followed by bishop b7 or a6, and then later c5, for example. But it's good to take on c4 only when white has developed the bishop. Why? Because, for example, if you take here now straight away on c4, white would just move his bishop in only one tempo to c4. But if you wait a little bit, normally white will develop this bishop to e2 or d3, and just then you will be able to capture on c4, meaning that this bishop will have spent 2 tempi to reach c4. Okay, so for example, after bishop d6 now, really natural square controlling e5, white played bishop d3. Now you are able to take on c4. So this means white has spent 2 tempi reaching c4 with the bishop. Alright, so short castle, and now d takes c4, bishop takes c4, b5. Black, as I told you, wants to gain some space on the queen side. and bishop e2 by Nigel Short. So there are two options here. Bishop d3 is the other move, and bishop e2. Of course, the bishop on d3 is a more active square where you actually hit on h7, you defend e4, but there's also one handicap when the bishop is on d3, and this handicap is that when black breaks with e5, c5 later, some knight is gonna land on e5 or c5, and then your bishop will be attacked from there. So that's why the bishop on e2 is also an interesting square for that. All right, so at this point, black has one main option. This is the move bishop b7, but the Armenian grandmaster decides to deviate from that, and he plays the move a6. Of course, it's a really natural move, defending the b5 pawn in case you wanna break with c5. And I would like to say something about this structure again. So black has changed this pawn on d for the pawn Carlitos on c. This means that actually white has more space in the center, meaning that you can actually gain some space playing e4. And black's plans normally intend to react against e4 by playing e5 as well. So a6, Nigel goes for e4, and e5. Be careful, don't play some stupid thing like bishop b7. There is boom, e5, and you have to resign. It's not good to resign so soon in the move 11. So you have to go for e5 here. And yeah, one would love to, of course, to take everything and play f4 and then to gain some space. But it's not that easy, as I'm gonna show you in this line, for example. So knight takes, bishop takes, and f4. The thing is, black can play bishop d4 check. You are forced to go king h1, and now knight to g4. And as you can see, the f2 square is really weak. You are threatening to go actually knight f2 or even queen h4, attacking the h2 pawn, just aiming to give some checkmate, some tasty checkmate on h2. So you are basically forced to take on g4, and in this line white has gained the bishop pair, and this bishop is really nice, controlling everything from there. So basically black is better, I think. So that's why Nigel didn't take on e5. He played bishop g5 that had been played before in several games, and now black plays h6, forcing this bishop to go to h4. If you want to go bishop e3, it's not a good idea because knight g4 is going. So after bishop h4, now black decided to take on d4. Yeah, g5 is too risky. Just bishop g3. There is a lot of pressure on the e5 pawn, and then your king on the king side is half naked, right? And we are not playing strip chess, just normal chess. So you should put some clothes on your king. So he took on d4, knight takes d4, and now the c6 pawn is attacked. So black defends this pawn by playing queen c7 and also attacking the h2 pawn. White normally reacts by playing king h1 in these types of position because it's too risky to take this guy on h2. Let's see what happens if you take this pawn on h2, then g3, and your bishop is trapped, right? So for example, even after g5, even after taking on h2, white has got an advantage. But also this beautiful line works. Knight f5, g takes h4, and now queen d2, aiming to take on h6, and this looks so bad for black, yeah? Let's say knight e5, with the idea of taking on f5, but after queen h6, bishop takes f5, e takes f5, there are so many threats. Queen takes f6, queen g5 check, king takes h2, and white is winning in this position. So after king h1, you're gonna take on h2, and Grigorians with good criteria, he played rook e8. Basically, he wants to put some pressure on the e4 pawn. That's now it's not so easy to defend with f3, because whenever you play f3, now this pawn is really tasty. It's got a nice curry sauce, because then you cannot trap this bishop by playing g3. So it's not that trivial how to defend the e4 pawn. The threat is b4 now. That's why Nigel played a3, stopping this b4. And black continues putting small problems to white opponents. So he plays bishop e5. So now it's not that easy to jump to f5 with the knight. This is a natural move, because the black can play knight c5, for example. And now you can't basically stop knight takes e4 after bishop takes c3, because if you play f3, you can just take on f5, and as I told you before, this pawn falls, the pawn on h2. So not so easy to defend this pawn. So white is forced to play rook a1, and this is what Nigel did in the game. Now maybe the first inaccuracy from black opponent, so he played c5 here. So taking a look on what happened in the game, maybe g6 was really interesting, and actually it's the first suggestion from the gym. The idea is pretty simple. So now that there's no piece attacking on h6, now you stop knight f5, and then you are ready to kick this knight from d4 playing c5, and then this bishop is gonna come to b7, and then this 3 versus 2 is really interesting here on the queen side. There is some pressure on the e4 pawn, so black's position is more than playable. But instead he went for c5, knight f5, and knight b6, and this position actually looks at the first glance looks more than okay for black, right? Because you are aiming to take on f5, the h2 pawn, white has to take care always about it, and then you have this nice majority on the queen side. But then Nigel starts playing really brilliantly from this point, and he goes for the move knight g7, brutal move. And one could say, what's the idea, Pepe? Don't trick me, don't lie to me. I just take this knight on g7 and you have nothing. You just have your ugly face, Pepe. Don't tell me bullshit. So what's the idea from Nigel? So he goes for f4 in this position, pushing the Facundo pawn, basically giving black 4 choices here. So you can take on c3, you can play bishop d4, or you can take on f4, or you can play bishop d6. So let's analyze one by one. So if you play bishop d6, of course there is boom, e5, ra-da-da-da, and black is losing on the spot because you just regain the piece, and then this king is extremely weak. So bishop d6, really bad move. If you take on f4, this is also easy to see more or less. You can take on f6, bishop takes f6, king takes f6, and queen c1. Using that this bishop is pinned, so there's basically no move to defend this guy on f4. Next move is gonna be queen takes f4, rook takes f4, then bring the other rook to the f5, queen e3, bringing the queen to the action as well, bishop h5. Whoa, nothing to do, right? So if you go king g5, h4 is really strong. So this king is gonna land on h4 and rook f4, and then what are you doing with your king on h4 in move 24 with all the heavy pieces in the board? So basically no future. So we said that bishop d6 is not possible, bishop takes f4 is also not a good idea. Let's analyze bishop takes c3. So after queen takes c3, there is a lot of pressure on the f6, and basically black is losing. Let's say knight d7, boom, rook takes d7, bishop takes d7, and bishop f6 or queen f6, both works, followed by e5, and if queen d7, bishop f6, king h7, and e5. You are just an exchange down with a pawn up, and look at these 2 beautiful monsters, right? So between those 2 guys, they're gonna kill the king on h7, yeah? So bishop c3 is not possible either. So the only option and the most reasonable is bishop d4. And this bishop is really important to defend the black king, right? So at this point, Nigel went for another really amazing combination. After e5, knight takes, knight fd5, the position is really unclear. Let's say, for example, rook f3, but looks like after king h8, black can still hold the position. So it's of course a complete mess, but it's more beautiful and more strong, I think, what Nigel did. So he thought, okay, this bishop, sorry, it's annoying me so much. So there is a way, after knight takes b5, sacrificing another piece by Nigel, in such a way that I can just take this bishop on d4, using the fact that the queen on c7 is unprotected. So the position has changed a little bit. White now has 2 pawns for the piece, and the king is extremely weak. You have the bishop pair, and black has to play really precisely if he doesn't want to lose in 5 moves. And I think black played one of the most natural moves in this position. Sergei went for rook a7, defending the c7 pawn, that the c7 queen, sorry. That means now c takes d4 is a threat. You also defend on the 7th rank the f7 pawn, but this is not the most precise move. Let's try to understand why. So the most precise move here is knight c4. Now you are threatening to take on d4. The good move for white here is e5. If you take on d4, you are going to lose really quickly after bishop takes f6, king g8, and now rook f3, baboom. This rook is coming to g3, and then the queen is coming to h7. It's going to be checkmate very soon. After bishop g4, rook g3, h3, whatever, boom, 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 bim, bam, bim, 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 checkmate. So even though you are a rook down, white is actually winning. So after e5, black could try knight g4, and the thing is, the difference with the other variation that we are going to show later is that now rook d3 is not so strong. I mean, it's strong, but black still can play knight ce3 and can hold the position. We are going to see that after rook a7, this is actually not possible. But even though you got rook d3, that is interesting. You can also take on c4, b takes c4, and rook f3. And this is extremely complicated. White is a rook down, but you have a lot of attack. You are going to play rook g3 followed by h3. Let's say queen b6, rook g3, queen g6, and queen c1, keeping the queens on the board. And now you are going to recapture this knight to g4 sooner or later. And white is going to be just an exchange down and 2 pawns up, and black's king is extremely weak. So from the practical point of view, I think black has to play really precisely in order not to lose. But after rook a7, Nigel goes for e5 anyway, and now knight g4 is just not possible because of rook d3. There is no knight e3, and the rook is going to come to g3, and black is going to resign very soon. Rook g3, and then bishop takes g4, losing. So after e5, knight fd5, now Nigel brings the rook to d3. Actually, it was attacked because now the queen is more than defended by 2 pieces. So rook is coming to g3. Black played king h8. That actually is really a human move because you want to go rook g3, so it's a prophylactic move, aiming to gain some sort of a tempo in these types of lines. So let's try to analyze all the options. c4 was the first suggestion from my engine, but after rook g3, king h8, there's a really beautiful move, e6. The idea is that after bishop takes e6, f5 comes, winning a tempo, and if black takes with a Facundo pawn, then queen g6 come, just attacking the rook on e8 and attacking the pawn on h6, and white is just winning. So rook d3, king g8, king h8, sorry, and another really strong move by Nigel, queen to d2. There are 2 threats. One is pretty obvious. You are aiming to take on d5, winning 2 pieces for a rook. And the other threat is just to go f5, using the fact that the h6 pawn is just dead, right? So black has to stop this f5. That's why he went to play f5 himself. But after rook takes e5, as in the game, knight takes, sorry, f5, rook takes, knight takes e5, queen takes e5, bishop e6, winning a tempo, queen f3. Now white is threatening to go queen h5 with a double attack on the rook on e8 and the pawn on h6. This bishop is also joining the party, the techno party, coming to f6. And the other threat is just pretty obvious. It's just the pawn on b5. So if black plays something like c4, then queen h5 is just winning. But if black parries this threat, this double attack by playing queen h7 as in the game, now queen h5 is not so strong, you just take the pawn on b5. A pawn is a pawn, as Uncle John uses to say. Yeah, bishop takes b5, rook g8, and now rook d1 by Nigel, aiming to play rook d6 in some lines. Queen a5 was played. Queen b7 was a better try, but after queen takes b7, rook takes b7, a4, the endgame is extremely unpleasant for black. You are just you've got white is just an exchange down, but 3 pawns up with the bishop pair and with a lot of pass pawns. So it's just terrible, yeah. Instead, he went for queen a5 in this position. Sorry, queen a5, and now this allows queen c6, attacking the e6 bishop. And after bishop b3, now rook d6. Boom! The h6 pawn is gonna fall, and actually black has to resign. So this was an extremely beautiful game by Nigel Short, who also defeated Fabiano Caruana in the same tournament. So we were in this position, knight b6. It looked really natural of the position, and I never thought when I was taking a look on this game that actually knight g7 was gonna work. But actually it did, and Nigel won a really nice game. So I hope you guys enjoyed the game. Just have a nice week, don't work too much, and I'll see you in the next video or Bounty Blitz. Bye bye, be happy. The wall is mine.